our country to be able to give you more light on what is happening and what should be done. Once again, my name is Paul Kagi. Welcome to Leadership Wednesday.
Of course, and on behalf of the entire team that is making this particular program, we want to wish you a very, very successful and fruitful 2024. Now, we have a very interesting topic. Of course, this year started on a high note and with a lot of push and forth between the executive and the judiciary. And that is the topic that we want to start with today in this particular show, the row between the executive and the judiciary. We've seen the executive led by President William Ruto really complaining about the misgivings in the judiciary. And of course, the judiciary have also responded. Now, very recently, we had the Chief Justice Martha Koome inviting the executive for dialogue, something which the President also really welcomed and said it is very, very important for the two parties to actually have dialogue. But we've seen the opposition not being very comfortable with this particular step, and they are discouraging the judiciary from holding dialogue with the executive. Now, this is actually putting this particular country in a very, very, very interesting position. And that is what we want to discuss today. You can look forward for this particular conversation. And of course, we have a question that we've put out for you. As always, we want you to be interactive as possible, to interact with us as much as possible. So we are asking you, do you support dialogue between the executive and the judiciary? Are you in support of the calls for dialogue between the judiciary and the executive to resolve the current impasse between the two sides? You can begin to give us your opinions, your reflections, your feedback on the same. You know the drill, 23814 for those interested in the shortcut platform. And of course, you can catch us live on our social media pages. They are wide open: Facebook, MBCI TV, and of course, YouTube, that is MBCI TV Official. We also have a guest in the studio. He's an expert in matters governance, and is Bwana Ben Masharia. He'll be joining us in a few to help us also get into the nitty-gritties of this particular discussion, so you can watch out for that. Meanwhile, so many other things, Kagi, making headlines across this 1 week.
Correct, Mangicho. And I think we have two major issues that we are going to discuss today. And one of them is our problem with East African partners.
Right.
And I believe as we discuss this matter, we are going to see how we are faring on between the Kenya and our partners in East African community. And when I was going through this issue, is that I could recall some years back during Kenyatta's reign, there was a similar problem between our friends in East Africa and also with Kenya, whereby it led to the collapse of the East African community that time around, until this matter was resolved later on. But we had seriously disintegrated the East African community, which was established by East African countries to be able to make this region to be economically viable, and also to be able to incorporate the issues of the trade, politics, social life in our East African community. I don't know whether this matter is going to escalate more, but by the look of things today, we can say that Kenya sometimes is not in good terms with Uganda, is not in good terms with Tanzania, is not in good terms with even Sudan, and also even DRC Congo, because of some of the stands made by the government. And one of them, which I could point out today, is the issue of Sudan, which has been having a conflict among themselves, and the leader of the Sudan Armed Forces was not happy when the rebels were given a chance to be able to address a press conference in Nairobi, which really irritated these leaders from Sudan. And this matter has escalated when the president wanted to offer himself to become a peace broker in Sudan.
Right.
These guys refused. The second area that, of course, you are aware of is the recent issue with Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, whereby Kenya had some issues with the way KQ, Kenya Airways, and the Dar es Salaam's air company, and Samia Suluhu Hassan, the president of Tanzania, had to announce that they are stopping the flights between Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, which I think yesterday this matter was resolved. But before then, there was a time when Suluhu was here on a peace mission, and he was, I think, snubbed by the high-ranking government officials, yet he could tell more about what is happening. And of course, I hope that you remember the issue of the Uganda and Kenya, the matter which we have learned that the president of Kenya and the president of Tanzania are looking for a way to meet to resolve the issue, whereby Uganda has sued Kenya, I think, in the East African court regarding the issues of the oil transportation. So it's a matter which is opening maybe a Pandora box of what is happening, and also it can tell us our relationship between the East African countries and Kenya is not wanting, and it was not there during last regime, the last but one regime, but it is coming up right now. Yeah,
truly, Kagi, I think is a major issue that is actually needs to be given the limelight and the priority, and actually the importance that it deserves, because we know we are not living in an island as a country. Of course, maybe one of the questions that people will be asking is, who is on the wrong? Is it our partners? Is it our neighbors who are on the wrong? Or is it us as a country that are on the wrong? But I think there is something that maybe needs to be done to ensure that we don't have a lot of problems in terms of our diplomatic ties with some of these particular countries. There is a way in which we need them. We need Tanzania, we need Uganda, we need Democratic Republic of Congo. I think we also need us. So I think there is some work that needs to be done, especially maybe by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to be in a position to see what is it that needs to be done to ensure that we cultivate good relations that, of course, we'll be able to see. Because I know there is no way we can, like talking about the subject between Tanzania and Kenya on the issue of air transport, and of course Tanzania lamenting that Kenya have denied them the transports of their cargo, and of course also now forcing them to reiterate also by now denying Kenya air transport to Tanzania. So we really don't need to maybe get into these. If there is something that needs to be done, it's very, very important, because at the end of the day, it maybe destroys the reputation of one particular country and makes just things better. But I think what we've seen so far is that there are efforts to ensure that some of these standoffs are actually resolved, and maybe we are also going maybe to see the president also meeting his counterparts, Samia Suluhu and also Yoweri Museveni, just in a bid to ensure that these things are actually put into consideration.
Yes, and finally, Mangicho, on this matter, I think it is not if we are working so hard to be able to raise the diplomatic profile of our country, and here at home, and even with our neighbors, our diplomatic profile is too low.
And I'm just being told that Kagi, as I look into your microphone, I think just as you've rightly put it, I think that is really something that needs to be put into consideration, and I agree with you that the earlier they do it, the better, so that at least we really don't have. And when it comes, even those maybe who are not aware that something like that is actually happening, they now begin to be maybe put and maybe to be brought in some things that maybe were really not very, very important. So I think there is enough reason for us as a country to take consideration. And I have also seen, actually, like you've said, it's something that has actually been in the papers today. Ruto, many wars or many battles. Sure. So I think we really need to look into that, Kagi. Yes.
All right. Moving on, I think we have another very catchy issue here in education. whereby we have seen parents invading schools and from-matching principals simply because they have underperformed in their KCSE examination. And we have seen several schools which was very embarrassing to the principals, whereby the Kenya National Union of Teachers and the KUPPET, they have really condemned these incidences of ejecting of school heads over exam results. And one of the things that KUPPET and NAT are saying is that if this matter escalates, then we are proposing, where these incidences have been experienced, that all the teachers from those institutions should not attend to classes because their security is not guaranteed. This culture is very new. It started last year when I think one school did the same. Today we have around 3 schools which are known. I don't know whether there are others which are not reported, but you can see here, this is a culture that is coming up slowly by slowly, whereby if the school does not perform as per the parents' expectations, then the principal must be held accountable. Yes, that is very correct, Mangicho, but the format of accountability is wanting here. Do we eject principals from schools, embarrassing them in front of pupils or students? Or do we have any other format to be able to bring them into accountability over exam results? I think this is where, Mangicho, we need to look at. But if we start by ejecting the principal, I believe last year we talked about the issue of head of schools. The principals are refusing to take responsibilities to head schools. The TSC last year had many jobs for principals, but Mangicho, you could recall, many of them refused to take those responsibilities. There was nobody used to apply for those jobs. It's because of such kind of things. If you feel that your school is not maybe performing very well for many reasons, you know, by the look of things here, the parents believe when the school doesn't perform well, it is the headmaster or the principal who is failing them. It could be yes or not, but I think it's a national conversation we should have to identify where is the problem. And this problem, Mangicho, is isolated because there are schools which are performing extremely very well. Others are performing extremely very low. There was one school, I could not remember the name, they were having a mean score of around 2 from 5. And it's a big question, why should they have like a mean score of 2? And the top student could score even a D+. They are good questions to ask, but as we ask these questions, we should always dig deep into the underlying issues. Is it?
Yeah, I agree with you, Kagi, and I think I saw that particular item and that particular occurrence. I think one of the schools in Kakamega County where a head teacher was actually whisked away, and it was not a it was not an appealing scene to actually see, and I don't think that is the right procedure, that is the right way, that is the right measure to take. Even if we have students performing poorly, I think ejecting a head teacher in a manner like the one that really happened is very discouraging, and just points maybe to the general way maybe in which a particular society looks at this particular matter, because I don't think any right-thinking head teacher would really want a school to perform poorly or any of their students to actually perform poorly. So it cannot just be bestowed upon the head teacher that they are the ones who are fully responsible for the poor performance or the poor results of the student. And so I don't think that was the right step, and I don't think actually it is a solution. Like you've said, Kagi, when you have poor performance, it calls for the coming together of all the parties. We have the parents, we have the teachers, maybe we have other stakeholders, and even the students, okay? Because at the end of the day, how comes they just waited for the results to come out? If there is anything they would have sensed that is not, or something that is amiss with this teacher, maybe they would have raised the issue even way before the results were announced, or even maybe way before they did the examination. So I think this is just escapist, and it was very detrimental. You can just imagine the kind of the kind of psychological torture this really did to this particular head teacher. And it is not in order. Something needs to be done. The parents needs actually to be enlightened. That is not the right step. And it is very, very even unfortunate that the parents actually engineered this in front of the students. So you can just imagine the kind of the kind of influence, or maybe even the kind of lesson they are actually imparting on their pupils, or actually on their children.
All right. And yesterday and day before yesterday, the Form 1s reported to school, and it was a tedious process for many parents. But one thing we could maybe mention here is that the process has been very smooth, because institutions are receiving a huge number of students. And I was asking myself, Mangicho, that how comes this time around many institutions are receiving a huge number of students, which was not there before? Is it that there was a less number of guys who were going to high school, or what? One school could receive a Form 1s up to 1,500. 400 just Form 1. A school has 6 streams, 7, 8, 10 streams. And you see in our times, a school which had 3 streams was a very huge school.
Sure.
But today they are up to even 9 streams.
Exactly.
But the process was very good. I think the ministry is working very well in terms of ensuring that the transition from primary to high school is very, very smooth.
Absolutely.
And we hope it is going to continue like that.
Awesome. And I think at this particular juncture, we can now bring on board our guest for today's discussion. That is Bwana Ben Macharia. He is a governance expert, and we are glad to have him today in this particular conversation. Karibu sana Bwana Macharia, and it's good to have you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Yes.
I want to say thank you for inviting me to your studios this year. We are happy, as always, to come here and share matters of national importance.
Sure.
Yes.
How's 2024 looking like for you?
It's great, with a lot of expectation. We just thank God for this far. We are having optimism that this new year, in as much as we may begin with a lot of challenges, that God will see us through, and also as a country, we will have a better way forward. Yes.
Wow, that is awesome. Thank you so much for making time to be with us in our very maiden program for this year 2024. I know we have a topic that we've already announced that we're going to have today, and that is the row between the judiciary and the executive. We will get into that, but maybe one or two things that maybe you might mention in our general analysis that we've done with Kagi, especially on how we are relating with our neighbors.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it must be noted that as a country, we have seen the president try to make some shuttle over foreign countries, trying to woo people into supporting Kenya and working with Kenya. But just like Hagi has said, it is very important that we must begin with home. That we cannot be at loggerheads to our neighbors with very small issues, and yet we claim to be an international acclaimed country. We must know that even the effects of the neighbors and the way we are behaving may have the overall effect with our neighbor, with our foreign countries, and so on and so forth.
Are we the ones provoking them, or are they the ones provoking us?
I think they
are provoking each other.
I think there has been issues of diplomatic spat by some seniors officer who are not saying the truth, because the way you are seeing these things, underhand dealings, fightings between Kenya, Uganda, and sometimes you see some other countries raising issues, even Tanzania. Of all the countries, that's one of the coolest country, by the way, Bwana Mangicho. So there must be something. The president must go to the foreign department and ask really who is in charge, what is happening. Because so far you have seen what we have been seeing. It has just only been letters being exchanged on media, but we have not had any serious, like the foreign minister being able to stand there and talk about such kind of an issue, which is a very serious, and which are going to affect many business people from Kenya. They are there. There are so many business people who have also come into Kenya from those countries. So it is a very serious issue that the president and his executive must take serious, so that they can address this matter, so that they not escalate.
Yes, and Macharia, don't you think our neighbors are seeing us on a suspicious eye? For example, the issue of Tanzania, as though we are seeing them as a very cool country. If you could recall from the times of the former president, the late Magufuli, from day one, it's as if he was on a very big mission to deal with Kenyans.
I think because now we are talking as a country, that is true.
Yes.
They have always suspected us. We have been there, some of us,
yes.
And you are followed, by the way, very closely. In case you want to invest on anything, you are wakisikia, you are a Kenyan, sometimes the measures that are going to be put on you may not actually be favorable. It is not like us, Kenya. You know, Kenya, even if Tanzania moves in the neighborhood, we care less.
Yeah.
We are a country where we accept everybody. But in that country, they have long enough suspected us. That is why even you heard, even the late Magufuli, when he came somewhere during Lapset, he said something to the effect that, you know, you Kenyans, sisi kama wa Tanzania, tunajua vile mnafanyanga. So even when you go there, you see that that tag. We carry it every day.
There is already a notion.
There is already a notion. A national, it's a national.
Yeah.
When you see a Kenyan, something you must be very careful, which is we know. So even when we go there, we know the tag they hold for us.
Okay.
That Kenyans are very, but there is nothing to apologize.
And there was a time when Kenyans used to fetch a lot of foodstuffs from Uganda, from Tanzania, those business people, the brokers, to bring them over here. But these days it's not easy to go and get food from our neighbors. It's not easy.
Is it a matter of the big brother syndrome, that Kenya is an economic giant and therefore maybe demeaning the others?
I think Kenyans, if you give them a step, they will take a mile. That is us. And we have nothing to apologize because Kenyans are ambitious.
Yeah, they are.
If they start bringing eggs from Uganda, they brought eggs until people thought that
Uganda could not have eggs anymore.
Yeah, could not have, because that's maybe our people, and that's the nature of how we do business.
Yes.
We are aggressive people. If we get into any business, sometimes you find we go overboard to make sure that it becomes successful. You know, for other countries, when you go there, they are very cautious about how they deal with us. But when we go there and we find, maybe, for example, if there is maize, we'll import.
Okay.
And we will do it nicely. But up until those people start realizing that, hey, okay, Kenyans, I think they have taken over the business. And that is not good for our neighbors when they realize, and especially when we have already left the station.
Wow. That is awesome. What's your take on school resumption for this particular year? And we've seen also a very huge number, as Kagi was saying, Form 1. And I think maybe because this time around again, Kagi, I think it is because every pupil that did Standard 8, of course we are not having another Standard 8. So all of them had to go to Form 1. But again, when it comes also to the issue of funding of our education system, already there is news that there are some suppliers that have already taken some schools to court because of not having been paid what the schools owe them. Now, what do you think, and where does this put us, even as we have now this larger number of pupils and students going back to school with the other challenges like maybe shortage of teachers, and the infrastructure that also needs to be put into place?
I think the government, actually they tried on the issue of transition. That's why you see it has been almost like 100% transition. And this one from primary to high school and so on and so forth. But above all, one of the biggest challenges that has come with is about issues of funding. You have even seen in the newspapers, even today, there are so many areas in terms of how the funding of national university and institution, whereby you find the Ministry of Education is not able to fully fund and even disperse capitation. You have seen even like when the CS Education was in Moranga last weekend, he was told, you are talking here, and many of the schools here have not received capitation, even for last term. So you come and realize schools are running on what we call negative. And schools are being taken to court, just like you are saying, because suppliers cannot be bringing things and they are not being paid. If there is a problem that the government must decide to sort, is the question of funding for our education sector. You see, they have tried to revive some of the universities, but already they are not already putting it a lot of effort in terms of constituting the council, making sure that now as they fund fund them, they are going to make sure that transition, even from these, you see, like this government, they campaign so much on the question of TVETs. But we don't see a lot of funding for TVETs. That's why you see even from 4 leavers, those who will leave, their transition to TVET will become another issue. So what we need to push is for the Ministry of Education to actually disburse those funding. Okay. We are in schools boards and we see what is happening. Parents are coming and we don't have otherwise but only to pass that burden to the parents. Number 2, you find that even the Department of Education is not able to follow on some of these rogue institution. You find they change uniforms like on a fortnight. And it is now the parents to take care of that. Look at now the exploitation that is going on in Form 1. You come and realize there are a lot of confusion even in terms of how students were sent in various schools, and by the time when you go to negotiate, you are asked for money. So our parents are on their own. But what we must stress is the question that this government, Kenya Kwanza, must invest more in terms of education funding, not just only stories and theories. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a very important point that you've actually raised, Bwana Macharia, and also maybe putting into consideration. Like for example, in Nakuru County yesterday, we saw the governor. We saw the governor actually giving some bursaries. We also saw the member of parliament from Nakuru West, Samuel Arama, giving some bursary and actually saying this is money that had actually, I think, remained from the previous allocation. And I think this is very, very important for us actually to look into consideration and find out maybe what could it that maybe needs actually to be done to ensure that there is smooth, or it is seamless, because I think the number of actually also needy students that you're having is also becoming very large. I think you'll talk about that, but before we can just take a short break, then when we come back, Kagi, we get also into our main conversation for today. Remember, our main conversation or area of concern for today is the row between the judiciary and the executive, and maybe what needs to be done. Actually, there is a question that we've put out for you. Do you support, or are you in support of calls for dialogue between the judiciary and also the executive? Continue giving us your reflections on 23814, shortcut platform, MBCI TV, Facebook, MBCI TV official for YouTube. We are coming back with much more on this.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Life is brimming with moments worth celebrating. The dreams we chase, the connections we cherish, the laughter that fills our hearts. These are the true treasures. But sometimes, the path to those moments can feel clouded by financial worries. What if you could invest in a future where chasing your dreams isn't just a desire, but a reality? With Nwealth Capital, small steps lead to big possibilities. With Nwealth Money Market Fund, you can secure your financial future for a better tomorrow. Meticulously crafted for growth, carefully managed for safety of your investments and growth, you can invest as little as 1,000 Kenyan shillings. Whether you yearn for the freedom to travel, the joy of owning a home, or the security of a comfortable retirement, we enable your dreams to reality. Sign up today through www.nwealth.co.ke/capital or call 0700-617-443 and secure a lifetime of financial well-being and dignity through Nwealth. Nwealth Capital Unit Trust Scheme is approved by CMA, which does not take responsibility for the financial soundness of the scheme. Prices of shares and income may fluctuate and the right to redeem shares may be suspended. Enoth Capital Limited is a subsidiary entity of Enoth Financial Services Limited with regulatory approvals to provide pensions, investments, and insurance services.
Kujikaza kisabuni utasema aje kwa kizungu?
Me strong like a soap. Me strong like a soap.
Asio hizo ndo gani sasa? Najua
Kuna huyu mtu kwa Bible alikuwa anaitwa John the Baptist. Baba ya John the Baptist alikuwa anaitwa nani?
John the Baptist. Paul.
Kwa anaitwa?
Paul.
Kienyeji kwa kizungu?
Kienyeji kwanza ndio nini?
Kienyeji tuseme hii usiku na statement watu wasema huyu mtu ni mtu kienyeji. Sasa kienyeji kwa kizungu?
Mimi kienyeji najua gani zile food za tumbo za ng'ombe.
Gani hiyo?
Mara. Nini higo? Hizo ndizo tunaita kienyeji. Motura.
Nataka unikamilishie medali. Ng'ombe akivunjika guu
anatembea na miguu tatu. Ako na miguu tatu, akivunjika mguu ako na miguu tatu.
Kutembea ni aste aste na kukimbia?
Puchu puchu.
let's go.
Welcome to Achievers Group of Schools, where every child is encouraged to dream, learn and achieve. With a dedicated campus for boys, girls and junior secondary school students, we believe in providing a tailored and focused learning environment for every child. What sets us apart is our commitment to instill strong Christian values in our students. We understand that each child is unique, thus every student receives personalized attention and feedback, and we nurture their potential to help them become the best version of themselves. In addition to academics, our school offers a wide range of extracurricular activities, including digital skill training, swimming, chess, and many more. And the best part, Achievers Group of Schools is affordable for all families, with fees set at just 25,000 Kenya shillings per term. Quality education doesn't have to break the bank. To secure your child's sport, reach us out to us today. Text us or WhatsApp or call us at 0712 847 061 or 0723 281 262, or send us an email at achievers.school.ke@gmail.com. Located a few kilometers from Chuka University, opposite Rubate Teachers College.
We are accepting both boys and girls. Intake is ongoing, so don't miss out.
Achievers Groups of Schools, embracing excellence and honor.
MBCI Television, transforming lives.
Of course, you are welcome back to the Leadership Wednesday program, right underway on MBCI TV. Thank you so much for making time to be with us, and we are looking at this particular very, very important subject, and this is something that began to be in the limelight, especially on the eve of the new year 2024, when the president was actually giving his address at State Lodge Nakuru, whereby he actually really piled pressure on the judiciary, arguing that it has actually become an impediment towards his process, or towards his goal of actually implementing some of the government policies and also some of the government projects. But on the other side, we've also had the judiciary replying, or actually responding, and saying, as far as the judiciary is concerned, the rule of law has to be be put into consideration and has to be followed to the letter. Now, this is actually putting the country in a very, very tight balancing act. And this is what we want to find out today. What is it that actually needs to be done? And we have put that particular question to you. Do you support or are you in support of the calls for dialogue between the executive and the judiciary? Are you in support, or do you support the calls for dialogue between the judiciary and the executive? Give us your reflections, give us your opinions, your feedback on 23814 for Shortcut platform. You can catch us live on our Facebook page, that is MBCI TV, and also on our YouTube page, that is MBCI TV Official. And I think for the interest of time, Kagi, we can directly get into this particular subject. Because it is actually bringing a lot of, it is raising a lot of concern, and we've seen different stakeholders actually getting into these. And I think also with the help of our guest today, I think, Bwana Macharia, as we get into this, because most Kenyans will actually remember when the president was actually being sworn in, and he promised categorically that he was going to uphold the rule of law and also respect the independent institutions, the judiciary here actually being one of them. And actually, even when he began work, we could see a number of activities, a number of exercises that he did that were actually showing that he was truly going to be in support of some of these agencies like the judiciary. What went wrong?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mangicho. You see, like, even as when the president was being sworn in, the first step he did was actually to swear in the judges that had not been sworn in by the previous regime, and say that it was unfair, and it was for the fair administrative of justice, which meant that those people were being victimized because there was nothing being offered to prevent them from being sworn in as judges. From there, just like you're indicating, you saw the launch of the judiciary report. They went together, they were dilly-dallying, and even they went to State House. We saw there was collaboration between now the executive.
And I'm also being reminded there was also the budget.
And the budget, it was actually passed, and in fact they were increased. And that's why they said that what they wanted to do was to remove the backlog, support the judiciary so that they can do their work effectively, because they noted that actually judiciary had been previously muzzled by budget funding being cut downwards. So what we saw there was a president, an executive that wanted to work closely with the judiciary. But what the judiciary did at the end of the day, and we thank them so much, because we must stand up to our oath that we have taken. You see, the three arms of government, to a large extent, we have seen the executive and the legislature operating in a very weird manner. That you find a bill has been brought in the House on Tuesday, it is done first reading, like the Climate Change Act. On Wednesday, the second reading, and then on Thursday, the third and final and accent, which is very wrong. Where is public participation? So that you come and realize those things, sometimes they do, wanasema mupende musipe, they have been passed. So our only hope, and the Constitution and the framers of the Constitution knew, it was the judiciary that was supposed to protect the Kenyans from such kind of overtures from the executive and the legislature. And that's why even Parliament has been able to pass some legislation, but through petitioners, we have been able to stop implementation of such legislation, because to a large extent they have ignored the common wananchi.
Maybe there is something that people have not understood. Before Kagi, you pick up, as you've pointed out, that some of these initiatives that the president took were actually showing that he was ready to work and maybe work closely with some of these institutions like the judiciary. So what is the understanding of working closely between the executive and the judiciary and working independently?
I think, number one, we can never separate the fact that we have three arms of government. The legislator is there to pass the same law. And you see when they pass, for example, the executive can come up with policy. This is where we want to follow. They take it as a legislation to the parliament. The parliament take that and legislate and come up with a law. It is now the judiciary to interpret what the legislator has passed, which means that to a large extent, these arms of government collaborate with each other, even in their daily workings. Because when you are in the legislature and you find you are aggrieved, you can go to the judiciary. Judiciary depends on the legislature for the passage of their budget. Judiciary depends on the executive, on the budgeting and approval and so much kind of thing. So that even as they try to work their condition, who do they explain? They explain to the executive. But now independence comes this way. There are laws that the legislature will come up with. They may be uncomfortable with the judiciary. It is not a question of making one happy. The judiciary may make a decision that the executive will feel they are aggrieved because probably they wanted to go this direction. So that even the executive can come up with the programs. There is nowhere the judiciary has ever told the executive don't plan about 1, 2, 3. Because it is not their work. But when it comes to violation of the constitution and the fundamental rights, then again people must seek orders from the judiciary. So they are independent, and in making decisions, they must be seen not to listen. You know, we are coming from a very bad era. During the first 2 regimes of this republic, orders were coming from State House. Kagi should be arrested in Nakuru and be charged in Bomet and be transferred to Mombasa. Those were State House calls. And actually Kagi could be arrested at 7 in the morning, but in the evening he's in Manyani prison. You understand? Because calls were made. But we try to fight that so that at the end of the day, we become the judiciary when you are brought even there. That's why you see, they deal with you as an individual. You are an offender. It is not a question at Rais and Pigasim. And that's why you had, even the president himself, together with the deputy, they said, at ICC, you will never hear us call. What happened? That now you are saying, whatever you're doing is wrong. That is now the question that now we must ask ourselves. Where are we deviating? But we shall deviate because when you appointed us, you thought that we are going to become your stooges. Never. But we must stand as judges. Judges are not people who have just sat somewhere and they are waiting for Kagi to come with a plain paper and say arrest Mangicho. They look at the facts presented. They look at all that. So by the time they are issuing an order, already they have looked at the facts that are presented. That's why government is normally given a chance to respond. But you cannot just go in public and dismiss such kind of a judiciary.
Are you doubting the sincerity of the executive when maybe they were providing the judiciary?
Maybe to their own expectation they thought that once the judiciary we have brought in this way, we have actually funded them, we have actually sworn the judges which were not sworn because
which was not necessarily favor.
Which was not necessary. It was actually because even the highest court had actually given directive. It was only the president then that was ignoring such kind of an order. And you see, you cannot swear yourself. It is the president who is supposed to do that, which means that at the end of the day, something somewhere was wrong, and you see their expectation was thwarted. Because maybe they thought that maybe by doing ABCD, they will maybe have an overall effect on the working of the judiciary. Only to their own disappointment, the judiciary stood firm and said, we are going to follow this way, and we shall be led by justice.
And Mashari, I think I have 2 concerns I want to raise. You give your comment on this. Yeah. Number one, the last regime, yes, President Uhuru, had refused to appoint those judges as proposed by the JSC. And one of the reasons he gave is that there's some issues he is looking at to be able to allow them to be sworn in. Now, the question being raised here is, could there be something the former president saw within the judiciary that the people in the current regime didn't see? Now that they allow them to be in the system, they have seen exactly what the former president was against. Because the president and deputy are very categorical on saying that some of these judges are very corrupt. And is one of the things the former president mentioned and said, I'm not going to allow them to be sworn in because some of them have corruption issues. Maybe the second issue is the independency of the three arms of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. Yes, we believe, and it is in Constitution, those three arms must be independent, but they must work together. I think what judiciary is doing is copying what legislature is doing, because legislature seems to be independent, but making unpopular rulings within their jurisdiction. Now, when executive again does its independent ruling within its jurisdiction, the government is not comfortable. It's very interesting if what judiciary is ruling, what the parliament is ruling is okay with the government, but what the legal system is ruling is not popular within the government. Don't you think the way parliament is pro-government is the way judiciary is being coerced to be pro-government?
Thank you very much. Coming to your first point, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta never sworn those judges, but to make it matter fair, sometimes you have to give reasons. And there were issues to do with the intelligence report about the conduct of the said judges that they are not actually qualified. But above all, in every situation, it is always the prerogative of the president to raise the same concern with the appointing authority, and especially the JSC. But you cannot blanketly overrule the work of the GSC and say, I have my own reasons. They are never personal reasons, but they are national security reasons. Because again, we also expected, for fairness of the judges, okay, that if Kagi, you are a judge and we have seen you are corrupt, there is no secret in your corruption. We have your file, you received this, and this is thing, and then we must take it to JSC. But we cannot condemn you in the air and say, Mangicho, you know there is a problem we have with you, but we will never share with anybody, we will never tell you. The judges had a right, by the way. That is why, even this regime, they wrote on that. That's why people are saying they were trying to offer some level of fairness. But in the end, there are things that, like you're saying, when you get into power, now you start realizing. The reason why this guy was being told not to get in, you start realizing the embedment of corruption into the judicial system. That now you start saying, you see now even the president, for you to stand in public and accuse the judiciary, what have you seen? What has really gone on? So there are things maybe he may have seen right now, but now they see they need now to start speaking them so that the JSC can take over, or now Kenyans can know what is happening. But at the end of the day, we must realize sometimes when your decisions are not implemented and now you start telling us these people are corrupt, we suspect you are concerned. Because they could have said, we are swearing you judges, but we know you are corrupt. We know we are swearing you people, but we know this is a problem, okay? But you cannot just wake all of a sudden, you start also telling those people that this is what is happening. Because finally, at the end of the day, we must speak to our people that the three arms must be independent. But the question of the head of state, sometimes they want to control all the arms. That is why the first thing the president does is to control the parliament, both houses, so that once he comes with a legislation, sometimes on how unpopular it may be, you just find that legislation has passed through. That's why the judiciary is there, to put a brake on it. Say, hey, okay, you passed this legislation, but you didn't consult Kagi, who is an impact assessment assessor. You didn't talk to Mangicho, who is a media personality, who could have told you on this matter, maybe we could have gone that. So sometimes the executive want to overrule everybody.
Yeah, I think Masharia also Mangicho, the issue of the independence is very okay.
Yes.
But again, don't you feel there are some judges who could be out there to be able to frustrate government's efforts on maybe personal issues or maybe from the history? maybe for making unpopular court orders, a way of maybe punishing the government or maybe retaliating something which happened there before? Could there be such kind of a...
I think I have to agree with you. There has been this notion, even as activists, when we go to court to raise a fundamental issue about a particular issue, you see that Wanjiko there in Bungoma cannot go to court in Nairobi. But that Macharia who is enlightened about the procedures and of the law and how laws are supposed to be followed before we do something, I can still develop a petition and go and get an injunction. What we have always been suspected is the question that we are being used. Like, for example, I want to ask you, which judge will allow himself or herself to be bribed to refuse deductions of NHIF? Really? Who is there? Who is to benefit when NHIF is increasing deduction? It is the Mwananchi. And that is why the courts are not there to look at just only the government, but they are supposed to look at the public interest. And that's why public interest must always supersede any other interest that the government may come and bring. We may have a good idea, but the mode of procedure, the implementation. You see, like right now, the government on the issue of the housing levy, they have been forced now to do what they could have done before. Yeah. I want to believe the president has got advisors. When you got advisors, before even you start a project, can you call your advisors? They guide you so that you know what are the bottlenecks that are supposed to find me. But you cannot always be running and then you are told you have run without shoes. Can you go back and put your shoes? That shows how disorganized you are as a government and how proactive you are not. You are just reactive. And if a government, we must say that nobody has the monopoly of information. Even the president, even in the coming up of programs, in as much as crude and rudimentary, Kenyans may look to them. They must respect Kenyans. And that is why the courts will always tell the president and the executive and the legislator, what you have done, actually, you have ignored Kagi, in as much as he is a villager. You want to build a cattle dip, and you have not consulted him. We have been there before. I went to somewhere in Kwale. I used to work with an organization. We build toilets. People never use those toilets. Do you know they used to look at them, they duck them, they go to the bushes. We never consulted the people of Kwale until the elders came and told us, you people have come to build, we don't go to the same toilet with our women and children. Okay. Yes. So we came to realize
there was no public participation.
There was no.
Thank you so much, Bwana Macharia. We also want to take this opportunity. My director is telling me that we have some vox pops, some opinions from Kenyans that were interacted with our reporter, that is Vincent Kimutai, to also get to find out from them what is their thinking, what is their perspectives on the row between the executive and the judiciary, and maybe whether they also believe or they are of the opinion that there actually needs to be dialogue between these particular parties in resolving the current impasse. So let's see what Kenyans are saying. Our reporter Vincent Kimutai, take it away for us.
Sawa, tuanza tuko majina yako, alafu tueleze, je, unaonaje mzozo kati ya serikali na mahakama? Unaonaje na unakubaliana na ile wito wa mazungumzo ambao umeitishwa na Rais Ruto na Jaji Koome mwenyewe?
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Yusuf Toloi, na ombi langu kwa viongozi ambao wanatuongoza, tofauti zenu msituletee huku nje kama wananchi, kwa sababu tunakosa kuwa na imani na nyinyi wote. Mazungumzo lazima tukubali, kwa sababu lazima watu wazungumze, na pia kama wanazungumza kwa sababu washatuletea sisi wananchi, tunaomba pia watu alike hata sisi tusikie wanazungumza kuhusu nini, kwa sababu kunaweza kuwa wanadaiana madeni yenye si hatujui, wakituficha ni mazungumzo. Kwa hivyo lazima kwanza sisi tujue wanataka kuzungumza nini, kwa sababu wenyewe ndio wamekuja kwa sisi kustakiana kwa sisi. Sasa lazima tujue wanataka kuzungumza nini.
Na unaweza kuzungumziaje kuhusiana na majibizano kwamba rais anasema kuna wafisadi ndani ya idara ya mahakama, ilhali jaji mkuu anasema kwamba hakuna wafisadi bali kuna wachache tu?
Idara ya mahakama imeshutumiwa kwa muda mrefu. lakini sasa ushahidi ndio utakaojua kama kuna jaji mfisadi. Kama wako na ushahidi waende wapeleke ushahidi mbele, na wale tu wenye watatoa hukumu. Sasa hatuelewi hiyo ushahidi itasaidia nini na sisi.
Sasa tukiongea kuhusu mzozo kati ya mahakama na serikali, inafaa serikali nao pia wakae chini, na sheria iliwekwa tangu jadi. So kumanage nchi kuna sheria, na hii sheria lazima ifuatwe. Uwe mdogo uwe mkubwa, ifuatwe ndio nchi pate mwelekezo vizuri. Kwa hivyo wakikaa chini pamoja, wajadiliane, wapate mali kuna shida, warekebishe. Ya pili, utapata mahakama pia wawe pia na ukweli. Kwa mfano, kuna mambo kama kesi kuchelewa, unaona, pia inachangia hii maneno yote ya serikali pia kutofautiana nao. Na serikali pia irudi kwa upande wake, pia iangalie nao pia wasidhulumu mahakama, tuwe na usawa kwa upande zote mbili.
Sasa mimi kwa majina naitwa John Washira kutoka Lakeview. So kitu ningeomba tu pande ya mahakama ni wawache serikali ifanye kazi. Shauri sasa, kama sasa leo tumekuja kwa hii launch ya basari, so ningeomba tu mahakama iwachilie serikali ya Ruto ifanye kazi. Tusahau yaliyopita ile. Yes. Shauri sasa hiyo ni kama siasa. Wale walikuwa wawache huyu wafanye kazi yake. Yao walimaliza.
Na sasa tumeona kuwa serikali ikisema kwamba, rais mwenyewe akisema kwamba kuna majaji ambao wanaongwa ili kuona kwamba ile mipango ya serikali inaweza kusimamishwa. Unasemaje kuhusiana na hilo? Na
mimi kusema ukweli, hii mpango ya kusimamisha hii mambo ya serikali, wangewacha yeye afanye kazi yake. Shauri hizi nyumba za housing na kuharibu sana mambo ya hospitali, 300 ni mtu ule anastahili alipe. Shauri 500 mtu apati. So ningeomba tu mahakama wawache Ruto afanye kazi yake. Shauri ni wakati yake. Naunga mkono. Kama itakuwa mazungumzo na wawache afanye kazi, ninaunga mkono. Yes. Yeah.
Naitwa Isaac Getao. I support it kwa sababu lazima wazungumze ndio tupate nini solution.
Kulingana na hii issue ya mambo yenye mnasema kuhusu mahakama na nini, lazima inaonyesha ajenda ya Ruto ilikuwa manyumba zijengwe ndio ile vijana wapate kazi na watu wapate manyumba. Na sasa kwa watu wa upinzani inaonekana yao ni kama wameletwa pia kupinga, ndio serikali ionekane baada ya 2027 ionekane hiyo agenda ilileta haikufaulu. Sasa ndio wanabidi wanapeleka mawakili kupinga hizo mambo, lakini kwa maono yangu naona Ruto ana mpango mzuri kwa vijana na kwa maendeleo ya kujenga manyumba ndio ili nchi iendelee vizuri. Lakini sasa inatumika kwa njia mbaya na kupingwa na watu wa upinzani ndio kuangusha maajenda zake, lakini mimi naona mambo yanaenda vizuri. Hiyo pia na support juu sasa kila kitu ukipinga hata mahakama ambako utoe evidence, na pia si vizuri ati watu kukua wanapingana na mahakama, na mahakama pia situmike kuhongwa, wakuwa kila kitu yenye serikali inataka kufanya wanapinga, si vizuri hivyo. Sasa tunaomba tu wote washirikiane ndio ili kila mtu juu nchi bila pia mahakama nchi tena haiwezi enda vizuri.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, that is our reporter Vincent Kimutai interacting with Kenyans, getting their opinions, their views on this particular subject about the row between the executive and the judiciary. And of course, you've seen how Kenyans have reacted there, bringing on board Kagi and also our guest here, Bwana Ben Macharia. And maybe before Kagi, you come up, you come up also with your point. Bwana Ben Macharia, actually going with the last speaker there. do you really think maybe the courts, could there be any chances that the courts, or maybe part of the court, because the judiciary is large, and maybe some of the people in the judiciary might be doing things that maybe the other side or the other part of the judiciary maybe is not in support of? But is there any possibility that there could be sabotage of the president's programs from the judiciary?
Thank you. I think, just like I said before, before you reach those levels of actually sabotaging president, you must also see the kind of cases that have actually gone to the kind of cases that have actually gone to court. You see, like for example, when you do, for example, like right now, when we talk about issues of, for example, this housing levy, it is not the judiciary that went to the people to ask for the matter. It is the people. It is the people that went to the judiciary. When you look at the judiciary, when it comes to matters of interference, we can never say that the judiciary is clean. There are cartels there. There are individual. There are cartels in the three arms of government. When you go to parliament, for example, let me say, you have a very serious petition in regards to you want a particular matter for a community to be assisted. You will come to realize it will be actually be sabotaged by the same legislator through maybe the speaker or maybe the chairman of the various committee. When you go to the executive, they have actually sat on so many requests for Wanjiko on certain projects. There are also cartels there, and who ask a lot of money even before investors come to this country. When you go to the judiciary, and along the corridors of justice, there are cartels who buy files. They make files disappear. Who do? That's all manner of. That's why you see even Mother Koome gave a report and said there are a lot of cases.
So is it worse when we have problems in the judiciary now that they are the custodians of the law, the ones who are supposed actually to look into the upholding of the rule of law, vis-a-vis the executive and the legislature?
Yeah, you know, like you see, like judiciary is the last resort for so many people.
Exactly.
It's almost the last resort, because you see, when you go to the, for example, procedurally, if you have a matter, I can take it to the executive through the maybe cabinet and say, this is matter I want you to address. If they ignore me, I'm supposed to write a petition to parliament. I go to parliament and tell them I went to the executive, I told them we wanted them to do ABCD, they ignored us. So can you petition and call the CCs and all that, or the CSS, so that they can come and shed light? I seek justice in parliament. If parliament goes ahead and ignore me, I rush to the court. Now it is the court will ask me, Macharia, did you first sort Mangicho Kagi as the CEC? Yes, I went to his office. He ignored me and all my letters, okay? And this is the evidence. Then I took a letter to the county assembly. I told them, can you actually address this matter? Then the county assembly ignored me. I gave them 7 days or 14. So my last resort will be parliament. So it is the work of judiciary. It is the work of judiciary now to take me as a person who is seeking justice and issue now order against the first respondent, who may be the executive. And especially that is now exactly what is happening. And these orders are not meant to fight the government. They are meant to bring people onto the table so that they also explain and argue their facts. If as a president you have started a project and you have been told no, you see, like this issue of housing, it has brought so many things. That's why even at the higher court, you saw they threw out some of those recommendations, but we are still awaiting. But all those things are coming as political pundits we can see.
But remember, one of the Kenyans that has been interviewed, and I don't know how he reacts to this, because he is actually very mad and very angry with the judiciary, because he's saying, look, how can you, the judiciary, bring problems and begin to halt some of these projects? We are seeing the president. Of course, recently he was here in Nakuru. We are seeing what has been in Bondeni, launching the same or similar projects in other countries. This is a Kenyan wondering, how on earth can the judiciary actually interfere with this kind of program?
That is the mind of a common Kenya. You know, like a common Kenyan, when you bring a problem to him, he will argue like President Anakwa frustrated. And this you have seen even in the supporters of the opposition, supporters of the president. Sometimes they don't bring the objectivity of a particular matter. When you start now accusing blindly that these people are subjecting, they are frustrating government efforts without looking at fundamental, like this issue of housing. I was here before and I said, even me myself, where we are, we don't know whether it is social housing or it is affordable housing or it is a mortgage for government. You remember when we were here when these houses were started 2 years ago, the question was for government staff to come through mortgage. Now it transformed to affordable housing. Now they are talking about social housing, which that's why you see the government is trying to find ground as they implement, and that is where it is wrong. That's why we are saying procedurally a common Kenya may think like you see politicians know how to whip
but
emotions.
they put it rightly that it is affordable housing. You pay 10%.
Yes.
I saw people saying 300,000.
Yes.
Then after that you'll be required to pay 17,000
every month.
Every month.
I want to ask you Mwangicho, tulisema hii nyumba ni ya mtu wa kawaida. Which mama mboga and boda boda can afford the deposit of 300,000, then the 70,000? If you right now the rent I'm staying is 3,000. I'm in arrears for 4 months. What are you trying to tell me about 17,000 per month? And then let us not. You see, like these houses, there are so many questions we can ask. Even those who bought there, they are not common people. The houses are not for common people. It's only that sometimes there is a lot of, it is shrouded with a lot of mystery. That is why you see there is need for the courts to stop the process so that they can come out and clear. It is as much as Wanjiko may complain, the government is being frustrated.
I think one more, Macharia, I want to ask.
Yes.
Regarding to, back again to the separation of powers, you see when the bill is taken to Parliament, debated by the legislators, they agree on it in first, second, and third reading, it goes to the president for assenting.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is here, and I think this is where the president is a little bit uncomfortable, whereby after the Parliament passes the bills in all the stages and is come to his table, if he is comfortable with that bill, he signs to become a law.
Yes.
Now, the concerning thing of the president is just one. If I have assented a bill, it is now a law already. How come somebody else again comes in and says, no, Mr. President,
you're wrong.
You are wrong. You cannot make this law again. Yes. So it's like retracting back this law from the president, I don't know, to us or something. Don't you feel sometimes the courts are overstepping their mandate?
Let me remind you, let me take you back on the issue of BBI. When we had BBI, nobody knew what it was. Tuliambiwa imesomwa, itapitishwa, and that is it. By the time we were going to the county assembly for passage of the same, they were being whipped like children. Kimbieni bunge, iyo kitu ipi, and you saw what they did. But when looking at the procedure, the BBI was brought in trying to bring very serious amendment that needed even a referendum and constitutionalism for them to pass. The courts declared BBI as null and void. To those who had actually brought BBI, they felt betrayed.
Yeah, and it looked like a very, very good document.
It looked like a very good document for them. Those who are in power today, they are the ones who are saying no to BBI.
Yeah, and they really congratulated.
They congratulated the judges. Yes. You remember, even when the court, first of all, when they said, can you repeat the elections, when Judge Maraga disqualified, nullified, Uhuru went ahead and said, we shall revisit. Surely they revisited by cutting budgets, all of that. But the truth stood that actually they went back to the ballot. Sometimes we must say that the truth to the person who is seeking justice, sometimes to the ruler, sometimes it's very hurting. And that is why you see, for President Ruto, he would wish that maybe one day he wakes up and find everybody saying, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. but we have fundamental issues. When you go, you start a project, you have not even done what we call background search. You realize that plot is not government. You see, like right now, they want to build some affordable housing somewhere. But at the end of the day, they realize that was a church ground. So the church has gone to court.
Yes.
And then now they will start saying these courts are now frustrating the church.
Well, the court is
the court is now frustrating. While the court must offer justice to even to Wanjiku, the least walking barefooted, that person. So we can never constitute or substitute justice with big ideas from president or whoever.
Yeah, let's jump over the other side now.
Yes.
From now, the side of the legislature and the executive, because they seem to be working together very well. Let's now come to the judiciary, whereby the judiciary now is making some rulings, some court orders which are not very popular even to the public. The way the executive can make a ruling or legislature which is not good for the public. Suppose now the judiciary makes some kind of ruling which are not good for a country.
Yes.
Who whips them?
Who is actually supposed to check the judiciary?
Yes. Because now the executive now is on a very weird situation, because if it makes some weird rulings or actions.
Actually, it seems like there are so many people actually checking the executive.
Yes. the courts are there, the civil societies are there checking the government. The government has nowhere to run to. But when the court again decides to behave the same, who puts them on the check? Don't talk about the chronology of the cases from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme without even considering that. Yeah.
I think we must agree that the courts cannot approach themselves and make a ruling. Today, the court cannot just stand up and say, we have decided Kenyans not to go to Nairobi. They cannot. They don't make decisions. They pronounce themselves on certain declaration by either executive or the legislature. What am I saying? I'm saying, like right now, when you look at the courts, the people who normally approach the courts or the judiciary are the three people. You will see executive approach the court. Maybe they want to have a way in your house, and that land, they want to use it for public interest. They may take you to court. You may take them to court. The parliament can even petition and say so and so should actually not be renewed their lease of land. Which means that all of us, there is a way we can still pronounce ourselves in terms of what we want to achieve. But when it comes now to judiciary, that is why we are saying if there is a problem with any judge, that is why JSC is there.
Yeah.
JSC is there so that if I feel today I've been aggrieved by Judge Mangicho, he has made a ruling, maybe be through, and on my own investigation, I realize he has been bribed. Okay. I can approach JSC and seek removal of Mangicho as an individual. But we can never go and seek the removal of the judiciary as a whole, because we cannot indict the judiciary. But we have to indict individual judges, even or whoever works, even the registrar of the judiciary, so that we approach JSC. And that is why you see, even Mother Koome was asking, where are these cases you are saying corrupt? And that's why you see, shamelessly, I must say this, that a deputy president can say, nitaenda mimi, I will march. What are you trying to tell people? If today, for example, you start telling Kenyans, can you disregard the court order? What about all of us, we disregard the laws of the country? Where will they take us? They will still want to take us to the same courts. So it must be a symbiotic relationship, not a parasitic relationship. So the judiciary does not, the executive needs the judiciary. Same vice versa. So because you cannot survive as a judiciary without the executive.
Yeah.
And the executive, there are things they must direct, because any law they pass, the only people who are allowed by the Constitution of Kenya to interpret are the judges.
Yeah. There was one guy who talked about when the JSC, which the chair is the Chief Justice,
yes,
he was saying that if you, because the process is, if you go and lay a petition against a judge, the JSC is in charge of maybe interrogating that judge. And this guy was saying, I don't understand how it can be done, because it's like these judges are being investigated by the same judges.
Yes.
I think the proposal could be the issue of the police. They introduced what they call the IPOA, because Kenyans felt it's not right for police to investigate themselves. Then they came up with IPOA. I don't think, Mashai, whether it is possible for us to come up with a judicial sort of IPOA.
Okay, but now you see, there is what we call, you see, Judicial Service Commission is not for judges only.
Yeah.
We have individuals, representative of the various stakeholders.
But the chair is very key.
Yes, the chair is very key. But you see now, even the input of other members, because there are things they vote. And you cannot say that because the Chief Justice is there, she will overrule all the others. So we must understand the workings of JSC. JSC cannot just make ruling against any judge. You saw when Sonko presented his petition, Judge Chitembwe, he was thrown out because he presented evidence, and even when he went to the Supreme Court, he was told no, you are found culpable of ABCD, and actually he has been thrown out. I think he has reached the end. Because now, if again we start, and that is why also
that should actually
the law has provided for other avenues. There is what we call the ombudsman. The ombudsman, when you are aggrieved by any department of government, you don't necessarily need to the court. You can still approach ombudsman office and present your case there where they can be able to see. But at the same time, JSC is on matters judiciary, so that they deal with that matter. They also avoid what you call mob lynching. You know, if you allow any Tom, Dick, and Harry to judge judge the judges, then we will not have a country, because we will find a chief somewhere being influenced and say such a judge. And that's why it is a very rigorous process for you to go and present a petition to JSC. They must look at all facts and merits presented. Otherwise, if we start now being speculative, propagandist people, we will never have a judiciary. We will be scaring them. But the framers of the Constitution knew at some point there are people who are going to develop dictatorial tendency. That is why we came up with the Constitution. And by the way, Constitution of Kenya 2010 is the most progressive even in Africa, because we borrowed from other developed countries where we saw that this one could assist us. That's why you see, even when you go elsewhere, Unambiago, look at the Constitution of Kenya. We cannot legislate morality. But because morality again is about, but we can still provide an avenue where even as a president, you can still get some direction and be told, in as much as you want to do this for your people, can you still consult? And the key word here is procedure and public participation.
And actually, Bwana Macharia, what do you think, therefore, are the possible scenarios if the president made true some of his statements that there is no way he will allow the judiciary to come in the way of the programs and the policies that he wants to implement for Kenyans, or maybe just saying, what if he defied some of these court rulings?
That will be the biggest loss for our country. A country that calls itself is democratic. We are a country that Africa is looking at. When you start talking like that as a president, you become tyrannical. He will become a tyrant. Tyrants don't respect the law.
Even if Kenyans at the end of the day are really going to be satisfied and
let me tell you, the programs may satisfy a section of Kenyans. People have houses. People have built their own house. So you cannot tell at the affordable housing for everybody. You cannot say that you are giving bursary to everybody. Not everybody needs bursary. But in your working, you must strike a balance between what you are doing as a president and the needs of your people. Otherwise, if you stamp today and say, Niko napanga nitainua juu, I will do this and do that, what happens to a country? What about if tomorrow, now the same section of Kenyans say they will not listen to you? How will you rule those Kenyans? The judiciary is very important in maintaining law and order. There is nothing that you can threaten these people. You can never just violate your own people and say that just because I'm the president or the deputy I can be able to. No, we have reached a point we must understand. That's why we are saying they must sit down and sort out some of these issues. For example, I know when the judges will sit down, they will say, don't do this and this and this. Make sure that the president, maybe this following bills, maybe they will say, what is your issue? The following rulings. And then they will be able to say, we made the following decision because of ABCD. What about you? Can you present your own facts? But still, they will not be able to do justice because they are not allowed to discuss matter that an individual like me has presented to court. We must go to court so that we agree and disagree or finish that matter within the principle of. So even this argument, they just talk.
Mangisho, I'm really concerned, and Macharia,
yes,
with the proposal by the CJ that they need to see the president and have a discussion.
Sure.
And my concern was just one. And I think the president is very ready to have a talk.
He really will come to the Chief Justice.
Of the speakers. But my concern is, what kind of a discussion should the executive and the judiciary have? And of course, regarding, not another thing, these talks are regarding on the sentiments from the executive regarding to
fighting corruption in the judiciary.
Yes. But the process is very clear. If the executive feels that they are not comfortable with the judiciary,
yes,
the road is very clear on how they should go about it.
Exactly.
But why should these guys have a dialogue behind the scene? How is it coming up?
That's why I'm saying, some of these things are defeatist. They will defeat justice. Because what will they agree? It means they are saying, if Mangicho brings a case, first come and tell us. Now, where is justice? This is a court of law. You must be ready to receive everything. Then, if you are government, we have an attorney general. We have the legal, we have the solicitor general. Let these people accordingly advise the president on matters of law. But when we sit down, what are we agreeing? We are not fighting individual wars. They are not clan wars. These are matters of justice.
Yes. And
we will never substitute justice with dialogue whatsoever in whichever way. Whether people say they sit down and talk, they actually, if there was some issues to do with the budget discussion, those are the things they need to talk and maybe explain from the judiciary. We needed 30 billion. Can you explain? But not matters that when certain people approach the courts with a particular issues about maybe stopping government projects, then you should call us before you issue orders. Now, where is justice? That will defeat justice. And if the judiciary, that's why you see the opposition leader is very categorical. If you allow yourself to go and have a dialogue, is there any crisis? There's no crisis. If you have a problem with the law, go to the courts. See, they have lawyers.
Yeah. Mangicho could remember even the former president was very unruly regarding to ignoring court orders.
Yes.
And the current president is being advised, do as your predecessor did. Ignore the court orders. Nothing is going to happen to you. So if today president decides, yes, I'm not going to respect those court orders, what is going to happen to him? It never happened to Uhuru. Yeah.
So, and by the way, as you put that, and actually that particular point of dialogue, because actually that is the climax of our conversation, but do you agree with them, or maybe they're not sincere, when they are basically just telling us that this particular dialogue is basically a platform whereby the executive maybe want to register maybe some of their grievances, which maybe they think are valid or they are justified, and maybe also maybe the Chief Justice really wanting to know, maybe in a formal way, because she is accused, the executive, of raising some of these issues by the roadside in a pedestrian way. Don't you really think maybe we might really be complaining a lot, but actually what they are looking at is a formal way of looking at what could be the issues between the two parties?
You know, the problem with government and politicians, they like whipping emotions. These courts are the ones who are frustrating us. Kuna wakora, kuna wizi. Now they are talking about who does not know there is corruption in the executive. You are pointing at one finger and 4 are pointing at you. It is very wrong for a head of a country to just say like that, in fact, in a public place, that you can accuse your sister arm of a wrongdoing, you say corruption, and that is why they are making decisions. What about even if you today they say you are also doing projects so that you can get kickbacks? Who will defend you? Who will defend the executive? Because now there are people who are saying some of these affordable houses, they are being done so that people can get 10% or they can sell cement. Who will defend government when that time comes? The government will still defend itself by saying this is what we have been able to do. But you cannot just summarily dismiss the judiciary and tell them just go home and don't make a decision upon. They are the custodian of the laws of Kenya and procedure anywhere, even across the globe. Not unless we want to start this country in a kangaroo manner that I can stand here and say, can you jail that person for 10 years? Can you jail Gargi for 15 years? And I don't listen to him or her, and then we make a decision. We must agree as a country to follow the law. And let me ask you, do you want to tell me the president does not have the direct contact with the CJ? They have. But why are they bringing that matter to the public court? That means there is a sinister move. They must come out and tell us we are being told the truth sometimes in some of these cases. And I want to assure you, the judiciary cannot just substitute justice with cooperation at the expense of Kenyans, because either way, they will still come back to Kenyans. We will look at the judiciary at some point and tell them, you compromised our justice by going and sitting down with the president. If there was issues of other things that may be physical, they can go and have a sitting. But that is why even Nani, the former prime minister, is saying we cannot allow you people to go there and negotiate justice. Justice is not for negotiation. Justice must follow suit. Whether we are going to be given 6 months, 4 months, we can still wait up until matters have been resolved amicably so that we have a way. Otherwise, if we continue like that one, we are going to have a tyranny.
Yes. And Kagi, I'm being told that our time is up for today's discussion, but I think it's been quite robust and very fascinating there. So moving forward, what should the judiciary do about this? In 15 seconds.
The judiciary must first of all agree that they must put their house in order. If there are any corrupt officials, they must be taken responsibility. Number two, if they have presented facts, there are facts which have been presented to them about particular cases, they have them. They will present, and especially if the executive feels they need to understand.
What about the executive?
The executive need to understand if they have any valid question. We have the Attorney General, we have the Solicitor General. Those are the legal minds. It is not the politicians and MPs in Kadhiani and Oreteba to talk about matters of national law.
They need to up their game.
They need to up their game.
That's where we bring it to close for today. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. We'll do it again, of course, next week, Wednesday, at a time like this. Thank you for your participation, your contribution, for following up for us today. My name is Mangicha Mola. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
Yes, I want to thank you for finding time to watch MBCI TV for the Leadership Wednesday. My name is Paul Kagi. I wish you a very, very successful day ahead. Bye for now.